Good morning, fellow lighters. Welcome to another live lighting critique. Marie, thanks for sending in your scene. I can see here that you've done quite a bit of work. I can see that from the last iteration, you've increased the spec overall on the monster, and it's definitely picking up a lot more highlights now. This beginning frame is great because you see the amber light going through, and hitting the monster, and the sort of the spiny thorn-like elements on its back. So that's incredibly successful. So we have quite a bit of spec here. I'm wondering though whether we could, I don't know if you have control in your textures, but I'm wondering whether you could maybe, the horns, the horns are quite specky, and that's actually really nice. But I'm wondering whether you could maybe differentiate the spikes in the horns with that level of spec, which I think is really successful, and whether you're able to maybe bring down some of the spec on his face and his underbelly, just to kind of differentiate, different parts of the anatomy. In terms of the sort of shadow detail, I feel like it's getting a little bit inky as we get to the end here. Inky, I mean in that it feels like there's very little detail in the shadows here, and it's just all black. And I'm wondering whether you could maybe add a light or increase whatever sort of rim light you have here to kind of maybe get some detail in the shadows there. In this particular frame, I feel that he looks, or he feels very wet, and know that it's a consequence of this very high spec level. But I'm wondering whether we could tone it down, just a bit, just so it's not so just so it doesn't cover his entire body in the same level. I feel like we want to kind of differentiate between, the horns and the teeth and the claws, and parts of his, with maybe his underside here. Maybe that doesn't need to be so shiny. The other thing that I noticed is that his eyes don't really read, and I'm wondering whether you could maybe get some special light in there to get a read on that. And this end frame here is quite important, and I feel like it's all about, the menace and his teeth. So I'm wondering whether you could add some kind of, and this is actually where the spec needs to be. It's not really showing up in the teeth. So I'm wondering whether you could boost the spec on this via, by your shader or some special light here that will bring up the spec on his teeth. We really want to feel that danger and that menace with his, with his mouth open. And perhaps we could, at this point, also bring down the speck on his skin. Yeah, and also, I guess, again, it's looking a little bit inky here. So maybe you could bring up the shadows on that as well. But overall, it's looking great. I'm really liking these beginning frames. This is my favorite frame. I'm wondering if you could maintain this kind of quality throughout the shot. That'd be great. All right. Thank you, Marie. Carolina, this is amazing. Really loving the soft, warm lighting you have on the characters. It's very pleasing, very flattering. And you've got a gentle, cool fill that's washing over on the screen right side. That's feeling really nice too. And you've got some nice, even though the light is soft, you've got some nice gradations coming across the face there. Excuse me. I feel this guy though, the guy who's kind of besotted by her, he feels like he needs a bit of work in terms of the the sort of gradation across his face there. You can see that with her there's a nice gradation from key to fill, and there is on the fill side more shadow. So I'm wondering whether you could have a go at working on the guy, and he feels like he's he could definitely go down in terms of the light hitting him on his screen right. And he feels a little bit cooler than her. I'm wondering whether he is outside of the outside of that warmish light that you have there that's working really well. I'm wondering whether you could possibly try to get that across onto his screen left side there. Overall, he feels quite flat compared to her. And I think it's just reducing the fill side, just reducing that intensity on the fill side, and maybe swinging, if you have a light on him, maybe swinging it around so that it's not so frontal. And same with the light that's hitting him as well. It feels quite magenta compared to the light on her cheek there. So maybe you could swing, also for shaping, you could swing that key light around so that you feel that sort of terminator there on their faces. Alrighty, but it's looking really gorgeous, at least on her anyway. Yeah, keep going. Thank you. And Mariana, I see there that you've had a few versions out. An initial quite sort of moody version with a, you know, sort of a low key light and ambient fill to articulate the lighting in the room. And I can see here you've progressively added exposure onto the character and the room. You can see there's a bit of rebalancing. He's looking a little bit glowy compared to his environment. And then I guess we have your latest version. And just looking at your reference here, I can see that what you probably need to work on is maybe getting some more contrast, i.e. getting some more, getting darker in the shadows. So what I'm thinking is maybe even brighter outside. This is not very accurate. It's just my very crude way of delineating with exposure should read, but I feel like maybe it could go brighter. And then adjust that just so it's a little bit less intense. But yeah, something like that, I feel would bring you closer to your reference. I think the good thing about getting more contrast in there is that if you light your character and get like a nice kicker light on him like this, then it does draw attention to your protagonist. And having immediately behind him having something that's a bit more in shadow, again tends to draw the eye to the character. Again, this is quite, so this is where we were thinking maybe something like that. This is obviously way too much, but maybe something like, something like this, where we can get that nice contrast in, and it feels more like the reference as well. So overall, just punch it up, and I think you're there. All right. Thanks, Mariana.